September 8th, 2025. A Monday morning at an impound lot in Los Angeles. The kind of place where abandoned cars go to wait. Towed from streets, left behind at crime scenes, forgotten by their owners. A worker was processing a white Tesla that had been towed from the Hollywood Hills 3 days earlier. Standard procedure. Log the VIN, check for personal belongings. Prepare it for auction. But when he approached the vehicle, something was wrong. The smell. Not gasoline. Not burnt rubber. Not spoiled food left in a hot car. Something else. Something that made him stop walking. Something that made him call the police instead of opening the trunk. When officers arrived and opened the front storage compartment, what Tesla calls the frunk, they found what the worker had feared. The decomposed remains of a young woman. Badly decomposed, weeks old, barely recognizable. The Celeste Rivas case. When the internet became judge and jury. Her name was Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was 15 years old, and the car belonged to one of Gen Z's most popular singers. Within hours, the internet had already decided who killed her. Before she became a headline, Celeste Rivas Hernandez was a girl trying to survive. Born and raised in Lake Elsinore, California, about 70 miles southeast of Los Angeles, Celeste lived in a working-class neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. Her family described her as creative, sensitive, and troubled. She'd run away from home multiple times over the past 2 years, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Each time, her family filed missing persons reports. Each time, she eventually came home. But this time was different. In late August 2025, Celeste left again. No note, no explanation, no goodbye. Her mother, Maria, waited by the phone, filed the report, posted on social media, begged anyone who'd seen her daughter to come forward. Days passed, then weeks. And on September 8th, the call finally came. But it wasn't the call she'd prayed for. The Los Angeles County medical examiner confirmed what the impound lot worker had discovered. The body in the Tesla was Celeste. Cause of death deferred, pending further investigation. Translation. They didn't know how she died. Or more accurately, they weren't ready to say. What they did know was this. She'd been dead for weeks. Her body had been inside that car, abandoned in the Hollywood Hills, while her mother waited for her to come home. And the car was registered to a 20-year-old singer named D4D. David Anthony Burke, known professionally as D4VD, pronounced David, was born in Queens, New York in March 2005. By the time he was 17, he'd done what most musicians only dream of. Turned bedroom recordings into a record deal. His breakout hit, Romantic Homicide, was written and recorded entirely on his iPhone. The song went viral in 2022, racking up hundreds of millions of streams across platforms. The lyrics were raw, haunting, devastatingly sad. It was the kind of song that resonated with millions of young people who understood heartbreak, numbness, and the specific pain of loving someone who doesn't love you back. Critics called him the voice of a generation. Fans called him a genius. By 2025, D4VD had signed with Interscope Records, released a debut album, and was in the middle of a North American tour. He was living in a rented house in the Hollywood Hills, driving a white Tesla, and building a career on music about love, loss, and emotional devastation. Until September 8th, 2025, when police opened the trunk of his car. Here's what we know about the connection between D4VD and Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The evidence. The Tesla Model 3, found with her body inside, was registered to David Anthony Burke. It had been parked near his Hollywood Hills residence for several weeks before being towed. It was not reported stolen. On September 17th, 9 days after the discovery, the LAPD executed a search warrant at D4VD's home. They seized electronics, security footage, hard drives. D4VD's management released a statement. David is fully cooperating with authorities and is devastated by this tragedy. And then the most important detail. The Los Angeles Police Department confirmed that D4D was not named as a suspect in the case. But that didn't matter. Because by then, the internet had already made up its mind. Let's look at what investigators actually found. The investigation. The vehicle. The car was registered to D4VD. Last known location, near his Hollywood Hills rental property. Towed on September 5th after sitting abandoned for weeks. Body discovered 3 days later at the impound lot. The timeline. Celeste went missing in late August. D4VD was on tour in the Midwest during the period when the car was believed to have been abandoned. Surveillance footage obtained by private investigator Steve Fisher allegedly shows a different person driving and parking the Tesla. Fisher told media, "It's very clear who moved that vehicle." It wasn't D4VD. LAPD has not confirmed Fisher's claims. The forensics cause of death, officially deferred by the medical examiner. Body was severely decomposed, suggesting she'd been there for weeks. No weapon or obvious signs of trauma reported in initial findings. Tesla's built-in Sentry mode footage is being analyzed. The personal connection. Police have not confirmed any direct relationship between D4D and Celeste. Unverified social media reports claim they had matching tattoos. A finger gesture. No photos, texts, or documented interaction between them has been released. Celeste's family has not publicly stated they knew D4D. As of late October 2025. No arrests have been made. No suspects have been named. The investigation remains open. But facts don't trend. Theories do. Within 48 hours of the news breaking, D4D's social media became a war zone. His Instagram comments, once filled with hearts and praise, transformed into accusations and threats. Show brief examples, not full real comments. "This is disgusting. He writes about killing. Lock him up." Fans began dissecting his lyrics like prosecutors presenting evidence. "Romantic homicide," a song about emotional heartbreak, was reinterpreted as a literal confession. TikTok videos with millions of the views claimed the song was proof he planned it all along. Reddit threads compiled timelines, analyzed his tour dates, and speculated about his connection to Celeste. Twitter, now X, exploded with calls to remove his music from streaming platforms. Petitions circulated demanding Interscope drop him from the label. Some users went further, posting his home address, his family members' names, and graphic threats. One user wrote, "You deserve to burn." Another, "Admit what you did before we make you." D4VD deactivated his Instagram comments, then his Twitter replies. On September 20th, his management announced he was cancelling the remainder of his US and European tour due to safety concerns and emotional distress. Friends told the Los Angeles Times that he'd received death threats, that his younger sister had been harassed online, that he was terrified to even post. In a brief live stream before going dark, D4VD said, "You start singing your truth and people turn it into something dark. I can't live like that right now." Then he disappeared. What happened to D4D is a case study in parasocial obsession gone toxic. The psychology of the mob. Parasocial relationships. One-sided emotional bonds fans form with public figures are normal. We've always felt connected to the artists, actors, and creators we admire. But research shows that when those bonds become intense and personal, they can warp into something dangerous. A 2024 study by the Resilience Lab found that extreme parasocial attachment correlates with obsessive-compulsive behaviors, emotional volatility when expectations aren't met, distorted sense of intimacy and ownership. In other words, fans begin to feel like they know the celebrity, like they're owed transparency, like they have a right to judge. And when tragedy strikes, that sense of ownership turns into vigilante justice. Because if the police won't give us answers fast enough, we'll find them ourselves. If the investigation won't name a suspect, we'll name one. If the courts won't convict, the internet will. This isn't new. Richard Jewell, 1996. In 1996, Richard Jewell discovered a bomb at the Olympic Games in Atlanta and helped evacuate the area, saving lives. Days later, the media named him as a suspect. His face was on every newspaper. His life was destroyed. He was innocent. Boston Marathon. Bombing 2013. In 2013, after the Boston Marathon bombing, Reddit users launched their own investigation. They identified a suspect, posted his photo, spread his name. They were wrong. The man they accused was already dead. A missing student whose family was then harassed by thousands. Amanda Knox, 2007. In 2007, Amanda Knox was convicted in Italian courts not because of evidence, but because of a media narrative that painted her as a sociopathic killer. She spent 4 years in prison before being exonerated. The pattern is always the same. A tragedy occurs. The public demands immediate answers. Someone becomes the target, not because of evidence, but because of proximity, narrative, or gut feeling. And by the time the truth emerges, the damage is done. Here is what we know for certain. Celeste Rivas Hernandez is dead. Her body was found in a car registered to D4VD. The LAPD has not named him as a suspect. The cause of death has not been determined. The investigation is ongoing. And yet, in the court of public opinion, the verdict was instant. Guilty by association. Guilty by ownership of a vehicle. Guilty by the art he created long before he ever knew her name. But let's ask the questions no one wants to ask. What if he's innocent? What if someone else borrowed his car? Someone with access, someone he trusted? What if the surveillance footage private investigator Steve Fisher claims to have really does show a different person driving the Tesla? What if the real killer is walking free right now, while we focused all our rage on a 20-year-old musician whose only crime was writing sad songs? What happens then? Do we apologize? Do we rebuild the career we destroyed? Do we unring the bell? We live in an age where every tragedy becomes a puzzle we think we can solve from our phones, where grief becomes content, where speculation becomes certainty, and where the line between seeking truth and demanding blood has become dangerously, horrifyingly thin. Celeste Rivas Hernandez deserves justice, real justice, not hashtags, not theories, not revenge disguised as righteousness. She deserves investigators following evidence, not timelines compiled by strangers on Reddit. She deserves a thorough, patient, methodical search for the truth, no matter how long it takes. And if D4VD is innocent, and right now there is no evidence that he isn't, then he deserves something too. The presumption of innocence we claim to value in this country. The right to be judged by facts, not by the vibes of a song he wrote 2 years ago. But in the shadows of the internet, innocence doesn't trend. Accusation does. As of now, Celeste's case remains unsolved. Her family continues to grieve. The LAPD's robbery, homicide division continues to investigate. And D4VD remains in hiding. His tour cancelled, his career on pause, his life upended by a crime he hasn't been charged with. Maybe new evidence will emerge. Maybe someone will be arrested. Maybe the surveillance footage will reveal the truth. Or maybe this case will join the thousands of others that fade into cold case files, unsolved and forgotten, except by the families left behind. But here's what won't fade. The damage done by a society that confused speculation with investigation. The precedent set when we decided that song lyrics could be evidence. The warning sent to every artist who dares to be vulnerable, to write about pain, to create from the darkest parts of themselves. Be careful what you say, because if tragedy strikes anywhere near you, your words will be used against you. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was 15 years old. She loved art. She struggled. She ran away. She came home. Until the day she didn't. She deserves to be remembered as more than a body in a car. More than a true crime case. More than a trending topic. She was a daughter, a person, a life that mattered. And somewhere, someone knows what happened to her. Not someone on Twitter. Not someone on Reddit. Not someone analyzing song lyrics in a TikTok comment section. Someone real. Someone who might be watching this right now. And until that person is found, Celeste's story remains unfinished. Buried in the shadows. Waiting for the light. This has been Lucy Sombra, where every shadow hides a truth, and every truth demands a light. If you have any information about the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, please contact the Los Angeles Police Department's Robbery Homicide Division. Tips can be submitted anonymously. Rest in peace, Celeste.